So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for our second session on day 2 of our volunteer festival. So this morning we have Kodjo joining us to talk about how we produce our social accounts. So I'm going to pass over to Kodjo, who I believe has left some time for questions as well. So do just bear those in mind or make a note of any questions that you have as we go, and we'll have an opportunity for those at the end of Kodjo's presentation. So I'm just going to pass over to you now, Kodjo, and enjoy the presentation, everyone. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I am Kodjo Kokochi. I know a number of you know me already. I am based in Accra, in the Ghana office. I am the foundation manager. So happy Volunteer Week to all of you, and welcome to this conversation on how we produce our social accounts. So give me a second just to share my screen. So. Okay, so our social account is a comprehensive document that we produce every year to account for our stewardship to our stakeholders. It actually details how we use the resources that have been entrusted to us to create social change. It is a very important document for the organization, and for that matter, we use a lot of resources, time, to be able to produce this. We produce our social account every year, and everybody who wants to know more about shared interests actually read social accounts, which provide every information about us as an organization. Last year, we produced our 17th set of social accounts, and this year we are in the process of producing the 18th one. So it means that already we have produced 17 since shared interest has come into existence. So what does our social accounts entail? I'm not going to give a classic definition of what social account is, but for us at shared interest.
Sorry, Kodjo, we don't seem to be able to see your slides. I don't know if you want to start sharing your screen again.
Sorry about that. Just a second.
No problem. Perfect. That's great. Thank you.
All right. Okay, sorry for that. So I was saying that I'm not going to give a classical definition of what social account means, but I will explain what it means for us at shared interests and what exactly it does entail. So our social accounts actually tell us who we are. That is our legal status, what our mission is. It explains to us what we do as an organization, that is our activities and operations. And it also explains how we do it, which has to do with how we do approach the activities that we carry out and the strategy that we use in doing those activities. It also details the result that we achieve during the year. It talks about the people behind the result that we achieve, so the people behind the impact that we produce, which involve the staff team, our volunteers, our members, our partners, and in whole, all our stakeholders who get involved in what we do. It also talks about the end users of what we do, or the end users of our results, so the beneficiaries. Now, our social account is actually built on 3 fundamental principles, which is core to the accounts production. The first one is that our social accounts strive to make sure that all information we provide are evidence-based. So the information we provide, we seek to make sure, or we ensure that the information is factual, it is accurate, it is empirical, it is credible, and it is verifiable. So we make sure that whatever is contained in the account, we take care to ensure that it could be verified, it is from credible sources, and it is accurate and empirical. The second core principles for the production of our social account is that it is data-driven. So data is important to the design of our social account. So whatever we do revolve around data. So we make sure that the data that we provide in our social account is from credible and authentic sources, because it's a public document and we don't want to just put any information or any data at all into the public domain. So we do all data quality checks, all data tests, and ensure that the data we provide come from credible and reliable sources. The third principle that forms the basis of the production of our account is that it is impact focused. So we seek to understand and demonstrate the impact of all our activities, projects, and operations, and reflect that in our social accounts. So these are the three principles that you will see across our social accounts when you begin to read them. And I know many of you are already familiar with our social accounts, and then you will agree with me that these are clearly demonstrated in the accounts. Now, to begin the process, the initial steps. So the production of the social account is not an event, it's a process that begins from the first day of our financial year to the end of the financial year. So at the beginning of the financial year, we have a team that meets. So we call them the social account team. The team is made up of representatives from all functional areas of the organization. So we have representatives from finance, representatives from lending, from member engagement, from human resource, from technology. So all functional areas of the organization are represented on the team, so that we make sure that all aspects of the organization are covered in our social accounts. So the team will meet at the beginning of the year to review the previous year social account process, propose changes and amendments to the process so that we can make it more efficient and effective. So after that meeting, then we agree on the structure, the new structure for the social accounts. So we discuss as to whether we will maintain the same structure that we used the previous year, or in the light of new development, whether we have to make some changes to the structure. The structure actually is the framework, the skeletal framework upon which the whole account is built. So that marks the beginning of the process. So we need to draw clearly the structure of the accounts before we begin to add elements to it. So one of the first steps is to agree that structure. And once we agree the structure as a team, we send it to the senior team of the organization that will review the structure and be sure that they are happy with it. And that does not end there. So this structure proposed will go to the board for review and approval. So generally, the structure of the social account is based on our theory of change. So we make sure that the structure aligns well with our theory of change. And once we receive board approval, then it means that we are set to go. We can start the development of the social account itself. So once the structure has been approved, we also look at the accounts production timetable, because we need to work within a certain time frame. And by the end of the financial year, we need to produce the whole document. So we need a timetable to guide us in the production process, detailing the various activities, the timelines, and people responsible for the production of the documents. Now, when we are done with the timetable, the structure, and the team behind it, the next step is to start gathering data. As I said earlier on, that one of the principles upon which the accounts is built is data. So we need to gather data. That is actually the fundamental step to the process. So there are two types of data that you will see in our social accounts. We have the quantitative data, which is the hard data, and then we have the qualitative one, which is the soft data. So we'll quickly go through each set of data and how we are able to get this data to build our social accounts. So the quantitative data, we gather this data from a variety of sources. So we gather data on our membership. For instance, we would like to know what is the total number of members that we have during the financial year. We look at the total number of new accounts that have been opened. We look at the total number of accounts that have been closed. We look at the total number of our web visitors. We look at our share capital. Has it gone up? So all the data relating to our membership are gathered. We also gather data on our governance system. How many people do we have on the council? How many people do we have on our board? Do we have new members of the board, new non-exec? So we look at the governance structure, the senior team. How many members do we have on the senior team? Do we have new members joining the senior team? So all these data are gathered on our governance system. We also look at our lending, which is our core activity as a business or as an organization. So we look at the total number of payments we have made in each of the regions. We look at the number of customers that we have been able to reach out during the year. We look at the total amount of money that has been disbursed to those customers, the number of countries in which those customers are based, the total number of producers that we've been able to provide finance to during the year. So we look at all these data and we gather them throughout the year to inform the construction of our social accounts. We also look at our team and volunteers. Do we have new volunteers joining? Do we have new staff team also joining? How many male and female do we have? And what work have the volunteers done during the year? And what has been the input of staff? So we look at all these data and input them into our social accounts. We also gather data on our partners. The partners are those that we have engaged with during the year for mutual benefits. How many new partners do we have and how many do we have in total? And any other information relating to our partners, we also gather data on them. Then we look at projects, which is generally foundation related. How many projects have we carried out during the year? And how many beneficiaries of the project, in which countries those projects were implemented, and what was the nature of those projects? We also look at the financial data to look at some ratios, look at how much money were invested during the year, and anything relating to our finances are also featured in our social accounts. Then we also gather environmental data, which accounts for our environmental stewardship. So you could see that we have a variety of data that covered different sections or areas of the organization. That is why earlier on, I said it's a comprehensive document that we produce and which involves a lot of time on the part of staff. For the qualitative data, which is the second type of data, which is the soft data, we try to not limit ourselves only to the quantitative data, but we want to go beyond to understand the story behind the hard data. What are the experiences of the people? How the people are being impacted by what we do? And what are the factors that account for the changes that we have seen in the data? We could see, for instance, that sales has increased during the year generally, but we want to understand what are the factors that have led to the change in sales. It could be COVID-19 pandemic might have affected it, but the data cannot speak to it. So you need to look for qualitative means of gathering this soft information behind the hard data. Either if there have been a drop in sales, we need to understand the factors. It could be the climate change and all that. So what we do is that we carry out surveys. So every year we carry what we call customer surveys. We send a survey to all our customers based in the regions. So in South America, Central America, East Africa, and West Africa, to try and understand their experience, know what are the challenges they are facing them, and also what are their achievements during the year. So we gather this information through a survey that we sent out. So for this year, for instance, our surveys have already gone out. The data collection process is ongoing. We also do case studies. So every year we commission at least 2 or 3 case studies where we take a deeper look at a specific producer group to understand over a long period of time how our finances, our project, or our support have led to a transformative change in the life of the producer group. So we go and do an in-depth analysis and understand whether our support was worthwhile, has it yielded any results, were there any unexpected outcomes as a result of our support. So we try to document all these. And generally, when we are selecting this organization, we make sure that they have at least 5 years of business relationship with shared interest so that we can document the story over a period of time and being able to make some kind of attributions. So this year, for instance, we are carrying out 3 studies, 1 in Latin America and 2 in Africa. And 2 of these studies were featured in the 2022 social accounts. We also do group discussions. We call them our shared inter-producer committees, where every region meets a number of customers at a central location and discuss key issues. So it's a way of giving a voice to the producer groups that we support to tell us how they also assess our services, what has gone well and what could have gone better, what can we improve, and what were the challenges and difficulties they met during the year. What can we do to improve our support to these producer groups? So we also hold those discussions, and the report also feature in our social accounts. We also carry interviews, sometimes by telephone, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic where it was difficult to travel. We did a lot of telephone interviews. Also one-on-one, we select some producers to also understand their stories and to get their perspective on our services and our support. And these are also mainstream into our social accounts. Then we also commission photography, which is also another way of capturing the data. So the photography speaks for itself. The one you have here was taken from the 2021 social accounts. It tells a story. Photography tells actually a story. So it's also a data that we gather through that process. Now, after we have collected the data, we have to analyze the data. And the analysis also, we use 2 approaches because we have 2 sets of data. So the quantitative and the qualitative. So we use 2 different approaches in analyzing our data. So we do a statistical analysis of the hard data. So we use descriptive statistics, such as simple frequencies. We look at percentages, and sometimes we do some correlational analysis to understand the variation in the data and to make sense out of the data to be able to write a report, which also goes into the social accounts. For the qualitative data, we do what we call the content analysis. So the content analysis actually consists at looking at the various trends, the major themes that are emerging from the various interviews, group discussions, and survey in order to make inductive or deductive generalizations based on the information provided. So once the analysis of the data is completed, then we start the actual writing of the report. So the report is based on all the data that we have collected, both quantitative and qualitative, and we begin to flesh it out or develop our reports. So the first step is a compilation of the reports by the various teams that represent the various functional areas of the organization. So report is divided into 2 major parts. We have part 1, which is our activities and operations. We describe all that we did during the year and the outputs that were generated as a result of what the activities we have implemented. So we look at our members and supporters. We write on our lending, our projects, we look at our partners, our volunteers, we look at our team. So we have all these reports after the data has been analyzed, and then we receive the input from the various contributors, which is now put together or consolidated into a main report. So once the write-up is finished, we move to the next stage, which is the editing. So the editing actually look at the appropriate use of our languages. It looks at whether there is clarity in what we have provided, whether there are inconsistencies or inaccuracies that need to be rectified, whether the report is clear, understandable, readable, and could be easily consumed by our audience. So this is what we do, and the editing is actually done in-house. So we look at everything and make sure that the report makes good sense and makes an easy read. So this process can take up to 2 to 3 weeks for us to edit the entire document. So during the editing process, there are always a forth and back. So if there are a paragraph that does not make sense, then you have to go back to the one who has written it up, and then to discuss and make sure that we correct any conflicts or inaccuracies that are in the report. So it's an essential part of the production of our social accounts. After the editing has been done, we move to the next stage, which is the formatting. The formatting looks at the general presentation of the documents. So it is there that we look at the positioning of the text. We look at the photos that we have put in the report, whether they are at the right place. We look at the quotes. We look at our graphs. We look at the infographics and look at the places that they've been posted to make sure that the general look of the document is really nice, acceptable, and then makes an easy read for anybody who takes it. So it's also a very involving exercise, because during the formatting stage, there's movement of text. When you put a photo here, it might shift the text here. So it's really a hard job, but again, we have expertise in-house and we are able to produce this as well. So when we also look at the cover page, and so what type of photo do we put on our cover page that will reflect what we have done during the year, or that will tell a good story about the organization. So all these processes are completed during the formatting stage. So after the formatting, that is not the end. We move to the review stage. So one will ask, we have edited already, why review? No, we want to make sure that nothing is left to chance. So we make sure that the report is reviewed by different groups of people. So once it's been formatted, the report is sent to the senior team that will look at the entire report page by page to check that we have not misrepresented any facts, we have not provided any misleading information, that what is there is a representation of who we are as an organization and what we've been able to accomplish during the year. So the senior team, after the review, will come back to the team and raise queries and issues for clarification. And then we, based on their feedback, we amend the report to address all the issues that the senior team has raised. So after the review and the necessary amendments are made, we now finalize the report that will go to the audit panel. So Shared Interest has an audit, a social audit panel that meets also to do another level of review of the documents. So the social audit panel is chaired by a qualified social audit network person. So the report is sent to them. So they have a week to go through the report page by page to make sure that the material representation is accurate, the facts are correct, that there are no issues with the report, and that we have not overclaimed anything. So when they do the review, they of course come with queries. So we set a date. First of all, a date for what we call an audit trail. The audit trail is where the chair of the audit panel will go to every individual contributor, check the source of the material that have been gathered to make sure that it comes from a credible source, look at the nature of the data and information provided. So the audit trail happened first, and after that, we have what we call the panel day. The panel day, all contributors together with the panel members meet and do a page-by-page review of the entire documents, where they raise all the issues they have come across during their review process, raise questions, and the contributors will have to explain or clarify anything that is not clear. And after the audit, which takes basically a whole day exercise for the team and for the panel members. And after this exercise, the panel will share their feedback, and the report is amended again based on the feedback from the audit panel. Once the audit panel is now satisfied with the reports, then they issue an audit statement to state that the report has been audited, the materials have been competently gathered from credible and reliable sources, and the documents could be approved. So it is now recommended for approval. So from there, the document moved to the approval stage. So the approval is at two levels. First, the report is sent to the board of shared interest that will also go through and be happy that report is a true representation of what we do as an organization, and assent to it that yes, it is fine, the reports can move to the next level approval, which is the AGM. So at the AGM, the report is presented to the entire house, and if they are happy with the report, then the final approval is voted on, and once we receive the approval, then we can move to the final stage, which is the publication of the documents. So this publication, actually we publish it on our website, so it becomes now a public document for public consumption, and that ends the end of the process. Then we move on to the following year and start this process all over again. Thank you very much for your attention. So if there are any questions for clarification, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kojo. That was excellent. That was really great. Thank you. If anyone does have a question for Kojo, then feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. We've got some time for any questions that any of you might have.
Yeah, I've got a question, if I may, Kojo. What information do you have on how the social accounts are used and by whom?
So as I indicated at the beginning, we consider the social account as an accountability document, so that we use to account for our stewardship to our membership, our stakeholders. So stakeholders have entrusted resources into us, and the only way we get back to them as to how we are utilizing those resources and what results are we achieving and what impact are we making are detailed in the report. So for us, it is made for our membership, our supporters, our donors, and also for the general public who would like to know more about shared interest. So of course, we believe that they do read the accounts. In fact, before joining shared interest, the first thing I did was to go to the website and download the social account, which I read to know a bit more about shared interest before, and know what type of organization are they, what do they do, does it align with what I love to do, before even getting started to apply to join the team.
I guess I was thinking, you know, the investors, partners and so on are in a sense, they're not captive audience, but they're, you know, the ones you know about directly. And obviously, you know, you want to inform us as investors and all the rest. But do you know if they are used by other, you have a way of tracking if anybody else uses them? Do people come to the society and say, oh, I'm really interested in what you said in your accounts. It says this, this, and this about the organization. I think that's really useful.
Yeah, we don't have any method for tracking those who actually rate the social account in particular, but we track the number of people who visit our websites. And so we assume that those visitors will read some of our material, which include the social account, which is even the main one that is put on our website. So we don't know the number of visitors to the website, but we can tell the nature of activities they carry out on the website. But we do assume that definitely they may glance through our social accounts. But it is something to think about.
I think also perhaps just to add on to Kodjo's response there, we also use the content of social accounts, so not perhaps the full report in its full sense, but the content from social accounts goes into a whole variety of other materials and resources. For example, when we're preparing presentations for external audiences, such as those used by some of our volunteers, a lot of the data and the content for those slides, for example, comes from our social accounts. So as Kodjo says, while we're not able to track who is reading the document, we're very aware that a lot of the content from that document is widely used from all sorts of areas of the organisation. I've obviously just referenced there use that we make of it in terms of volunteer use, but I know that colleagues across the organisation make use of it for other opportunities as well. So I hope that maybe helps give a bit of a sense of the sustainability and the legacy, if you like, of the actual document, the actual report. John, I think you perhaps have a question.
Yeah, and it really is following up Martin's point. I mean, excellent presentation, Kodjo, as always, with you. Really enjoyed it. And what impressed me, which was something I was sort of partly aware of, is the tremendous amount of work which goes into the social accounts. And my question is really, I think what Martin was driving at, how much is it actually used compared with how much input goes into it? I mean, I take your point, Sally, that it's used by a lot of people within the organization, but how many members actually read it or refer to it who aren't within the organization?
Yeah, thank you, John. I think, as I said, we have not put in place a system for tracking those who actually read our social accounts. But perhaps one way of doing that is that during the member survey or other surveys, we can include that as a question to document or get a sense of how many people actually read our social accounts. So I am taking it as a suggestion that maybe we'll go into the various surveys that we carry out, even with our producers, to find out whether they have ever read our social accounts and if they find it useful or helpful to them. So I think it's something that probably we need to incorporate into our future surveys to have some data on this, because I agree that a lot of work goes into this, and then we need to track the usability of the documents. Other than that, there will be a lot of effort that we are making, but we are not getting the commensurate benefit of getting people to read it and consume the information therein.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Kodjo. Are there any other questions from anybody? I'm just having a quick look to see if there's any hands up. It doesn't look like it, but if anyone does have further questions for Kodjo about the social accounts, about what you've heard today, do feel free to get in touch with us and we'll pass your questions on to Kodjo for a response. But thank you all for joining us this morning, and we hope to see you again at further sessions for the Volunteer Festival. We've got another session this afternoon and we have 3 sessions running tomorrow. So we hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, and of course Kodjo's session just now, and we hopefully will see you again over the next day or so at other sessions that we're running. So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you very much, Kodjo. That was a great overview of social accounts and what we do. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Kodjo.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.